So now we are into the present session, which is basically about women in the present context and where do we stand. And I really don't know why I'm here, what exactly is my qualification to be here, but I come from, I represent the corporate sector maybe, but I think the single most qualification is I'm surrounded by 5 women in my life, 24 hours, 2 daughters, wife, mother, and health who has been there with us for 15 years. So that's probably the key qualification. So we have a very accomplished panelist out here, and so we have Amita. Amita brings with her 25 years of experience in the advertising world, and she has, currently she is working as the Chief Operating Officer of Tens2 Aegis Network, one of the largest ad agencies, and she has been with various ad agencies, as well as she's worked with Beckinsale and Samsung in India. She lives in Gurgaon, and so she is a true epitome of a family as well as working and family woman. And then we have Veena. Veena is a journalist, and also she works as an editor of Blink, and she has written 2 books. One is Would You Like Some Bread with That Book, and the other is The Mother-in-Law. So that's a very interesting name, and I'm sure you understand she is quite qualified to really speak in this panel. And then we have Shudipta, and she loves to call herself the ex-con woman. The reason being she's conned many as an advertising person to buy different products, and she's now a homemaker, and she has also been in the ad film world. So that is it, and so I'll just set the context in place for the present for this panel. Now, when we talk of present, and we talk of India and we talk of women, I think it's not really the India that we get to see in this room. It's much beyond that. You have we are in an India where just a few weeks back we heard of in the invite you've seen Sati being written as one of the context, and that it's not really the past. We just heard of a suspected Sati case happening in Maharashtra. So that's a reality. Nirbhaya is the reality. We also have central ministers making statements of all obnoxious kind, and that's a reality. And we also have winds of change. And when we talk of winds of change, we talk of the 26 weeks maternity leave that the government has enforced. When we talk of winds of change, we get to see Amina Bain in Gujarat becoming the first sarpanch of a all-women panchayat. We get to see wind of change when Manavi Bhattacharya becomes a principal in a women's college as a transgender. Those are winds of change that we get to see in present India, and that's what exactly we'll try and explore today in this particular panel. So I will set the ball rolling, and what my first question to the panelists will be, what do you really think is the biggest challenge or the foremost challenge that women in the present context are facing in India? So we'll start with Shudipta.
Okay. I'll take a step. That's kind of nervous. Sorry for my, as you can see, I'm really nervous. Okay. I have been out of the corporate world for I think 12 years. I gave it up when my daughter was born, who's also over here attending. The reason I did that was because I found it extremely challenging to balance home and my duties at work. Today I speak to you as a homemaker. I speak to you as someone who has experienced corporate life, and I speak to you as someone who's pretty much standing at the crossroads of life, because my daughter is grown up enough, so she doesn't need me 24/7. I feel that I have many hours of work left in me, but apparently no office is large enough to fit me anymore. So I feel that while I represent a fairly urban, educated women of today, I also seem to be representing women who still have a lot to offer, okay, in terms of economic growth, in terms of social growth, in just terms of contributing to making, you know, our workplaces better, in terms of contributing to what, you know, Modi says, you know, make India better, अच्छे दिन आएंगे, यार अच्छे दिन हमारे से भी तो शुरू होनी चाहिए. It's not happening, and that's where I find myself. Okay, so it's a very emotional kind of situation. It has got nothing to do with numbers. I will not even get into percentages, nothing. It is just about women like me who gave up successful careers and today apparently doors have closed on them. Which I think while we are progressing as a country, there's education happening, there are opportunities, but apparently it's bypassing a fairly large chunk, and that's where I think we are today.
I'm going to say that there are two kinds of challenges, and there are two sort of branches of the challenge. One is definitely the family, and the other is the workplace. So when I wrote the book on the mother-in-law, it started off as a book that was a funny book about Indian mothers-in-law. But then as I started speaking to these daughters-in-law across the country, what I realized was that the stories were so grim that it would have been not respectful of the truth to make it funny. And the primary sort of challenges that a newly married Indian woman finds when she goes into a new family, even in urban, educated, English-speaking India, is that she is sort of stripped of all her choices. She is told what she is allowed to wear. And very often, more often, she is told whether she can work or not, whether she is allowed to work or not. And the fact that you don't have to work is always sort of held out as a carrot. You know, we are prosperous enough that you don't have to work. Or my Hindi is not very good, but in the north they say "Hamare mein nahi ladki kaam nahi karte." So it's supposed to be sort of a place of privilege that you have married into a family where you don't have to sort of sell yourself at your workplace. So the family is definitely a challenge, and we can sort of talk about the various forms and the various stages that it comes. But just to sort of give you a number, the leaking pipeline in India, which is the number of women who quit work between the entry level and middle level management, is more than 50%. To compare, in Asia it's 29%. There is only one country which is more than India, which is Brazil. So we have the second highest leaking pipeline in the world, and a large part of it comes from the fact that the family comes in the way of whether you're allowed to continue to work or not. The other part is corporates and companies, and that they don't make that an easy argument for, say, this daughter-in-law to have with the family, saying that, but my company allows me to do that. And we talk about the maternity bill, and I have a counter perspective to it, which is that when we talk about it, we discuss it. But on the face of it, because there isn't a provision for flexible working hours, for the large part, there isn't a provision for a facility to look after your kids in office, or to work partly from home, or to bring a newborn, an infant into office, that it becomes a difficult argument to convince the family, and therefore that becomes a cycle which is very difficult to break out of. And we can discuss the details of policies as we go along.
Yes, so I think the challenges have been stated, and I think a lot of common challenges exist, but I think there are multiple challenges. I've been in the work life for more than 25 years, and I see this not from the woman who's in the corporate world really, but I also see it from the way the girls have grown in our families, our help in the homes who's coming and doing the work. What has changed in our life today, and how has it changed? I mean, has it really changed really? So when you look at the corporate world, like it has been said, that yes, while there are women entering the corporate world, there are more women working, but they are also coming out of the corporate world very quickly. By the time they reach middle management, they step out of it. So they've just spoken about it. All of us have gone through those phases when women have wanted to come out, because at the end of the day, corporate world does not support women as they go up the ladder. It does not look at them with empathy. There is a lot of conversation about diversity, and there is this conversation that women are much better, the EQ is much better, so therefore handling people, handling the teams, working well with people, more dedicated, they are preferred. But when it comes to actually recruitment and hiring, they'll say that no, listen, let's not take a woman, she'll get married, she'll have a baby, she'll go away. That's a very real perspective, and that happens on a daily basis. So that happens to women. Women, when they start working and they become really career-oriented and they're ambitious, they find it difficult to find men who want to get married to them. That's another challenge. Now, how do you handle it? And I work with a lot of women and men together. And I have these young, bright girls who are 30-year-old, and they are saying that, man, I've met so many men. The moment I say, listen, the choice to continue to work after marriage is mine and not yours. I want to be a homemaker, but I do not want to give up another part of my life, which my family and my parents have invested as much as I have. And, most men back out. So that's again a mindset challenge. So you call it a mindset challenge. If you look at the corporate world, senior management, how many women are there? In a boardroom and an executive council, out of 20 men, there are not more than 2 women. And that is also on a higher side. There are industries. You go into manufacturing, go into electrical field, whether you go into technology companies, and you see there are hardly any women. IITs, you find now there are women. So in a classroom of 40 kids, there will be 8 girls. Yes, there will be, which has improved. So there is a better representation, as I see, of women in education. That has increased, and we see that in our life on a daily basis. But when it comes to really going out there and doing what they want to do, they're not able to handle it. And I don't think so. Therefore, there is an environmental issue. There is a safety issue. You read the Uber case, it's right there. So parents are worried, you have a young daughter, you say don't work, give up your job if it's too far, because I can't have you working late night. I have young women who finish work at 10 o'clock when they want to. Does my organization support her? No, it doesn't. There are cabs available, and she's going in a cab alone at night at 10 o'clock. What is it that an organization is doing? Nothing. There is a lot of lip service going on and nothing really happening there. My help at home, she's leaving a little baby in the house and coming to work today. She's working, that's the difference, that she's coming and working, she's fighting it out. But yet, can she leave her child with anybody? Is it safe? There are no infrastructural support. We do not have anything in terms of environmental infrastructure support. Forget the mindset barriers. We all living with those. There are plenty and many more that people are dealing with. So that's where I come from.
I just want to counter one point. I think the assumption is that there are more women working now than there ever were in India, which is completely untrue. So in 2001, the gender ratio of India was 37%. In 2014, the gender ratio is 24%. So what has also happened is that the post-liberalization as corporate salaries have gone up, there has been less incentive for wives to work, because the assumption is that the husband is now making enough money so that you don't have to work. So while in places like Nizam, there is a lot more visibility of a woman in the workplace, it doesn't translate to actual numbers on the ground. So let's not sort of be under the impression that there has been a step forward in women and the workplace. On the contrary, there has been several steps backwards.
It's interesting. The present looks greater than the past, it seems, and probably that's the reality. But we have some very interesting, perspective that came in, and one is, of course, and we're talking about the corporate sector. Corporate sector doesn't have enough space for a woman to come back, after a successful career, if you take a break. We talked about the leaking pipeline and the fact that there are hardly women in the top, and that's the reality of today's world. But okay, let me just put a little bit of let me take it in a different direction, and maybe again we'll come back to this the present corporate context. So what are the positives? What are the good things which are happening in terms of societal changes, in terms of government initiatives, in terms of corporate whether it's the DNI initiatives or the way corporates are approaching, the whole, the DNI initiatives, or for that matter, how women are getting taken care of. What are the positives which are happening around us? Anything anybody would love to say?
Okay, I'll start with the positives. Priyanka Chopra is playing Holi with Jimmy Fallon. Okay, and I think that's great. Okay, I mean, I know we cannot relate to her as a celebrity because we are not, but to have an Indian export to go over there and to actually speak her mind and get them to participate in what is truly Indian, I doff my hat to her. In fact, I think Bollywood per se is a stellar example of how at least some strides are being taken. I hate to use the term, but where empowerment of women is concerned. So you have someone like Deepika Padukone, who's now getting paid higher than her male co-stars in Padmavati. We all know about Kangana Ranaut and the fact that she's on top without any nepotism. We of course and then we have someone like Indira Nuri. We can talk about her until the cows come home. Closer home, we have Preeti Nair at HUL, who's trying to actually glamorize the segment of detergents. Okay, so there is a lot, but again, like I said, for me, it's more personal. So you have more women who are opting to be single. Divorce is no more, a word that is spoken in hushed tones. You have single mothers who are doing brilliant jobs of raising wonderful children. You have solo women travelers, which is, I think, extremely liberating. You have, women enjoying and talking about sex, which I think is brilliant. Okay, and I think a lot of women, at least the ones probably in my age group, I think we have reached, pardon my French, a fuck it level. You accept me for what I am. Okay, I will come to you with my faults. I will celebrate those faults. I will celebrate my weakness. You accept me for what I am. I am not going to bow down to your societal pressures. I'm not going to say yes because society says yes. Okay, and this is a learning curve. It's not something that comes to you overnight. It is something that comes with experience, and more often than not, it comes to you with the knocks that you receive in life. It is like, yeah, how much are they going to push you? At some point in time, you're going to stand up and say, this is enough. And I think a lot of women are doing that. And I think that's a huge positive. And this is something that I have personally seen among women who are not exactly, how should I put it, who are not exactly winners in a traditional sense. It's not that they are CEOs of companies or they run these great, the business empires. No, they're normal, regular women. But they are extremely solid in their emotional, physical, sexual, whatever qualities and strength that you need to epitomize what Shakti is. And I think that's what the positives are.
I actually completely disagree. I think A, anecdote is not data, and B, everything that was quoted as an example is an example of privilege and not liberation. And often we confuse the two, especially in a place, sitting in a place like this, in the suburb like Gurgaon. It's very easy to get confused between the two. But in the work that I do, we see outside the bubble, and therefore all of that actually accounts for privilege. It is not feminism, it is not liberation.
Yeah, so adding to that,
I agree with what you're saying, that I feel we are a privileged lot of women here, we are all sitting here, and there is a lot of celebration of life that I see around us. Women who've chosen to become homemakers, for whatever reasons, they are very comfortable in their skin, they're very happy to be in their place, and they're doing all the things. So there is a certain amount of, not an entitlement, but something that you have earned through whatever you've done in your life, and therefore you're enjoying those privileges. Having said that, parallelly, there are women who have started forging their path. When we hear about so many 45 million microfinance schemes which have been loans have been given away, that means those women are actually fighting. So I would say that there is this, women are pushing boundaries, let me put it that way, that's my perspective. They haven't reached anywhere yet, they haven't accomplished as much as they should as an individual, not as a woman but as an individual. They are pushing boundaries wherever they are. Sometimes I think it goes the wrong way as well, I've seen that as well. But by and large what they're trying to do is come out of the home and work and do what I can to support my family. You know, so life has made tough, it has become tougher for her. Therefore, she's in a tougher space today because she's straddling so many different roles at the same time. She's fighting it out and pushing boundary on a daily basis, you know. Whether she's going and setting up her own little business, whether she's going and working and doing a million job and leaving a child at home knowing very well that, you know, nobody's there to do anything for the child, or whether she decides that I will be at home and look after my children and then lead the life that I want to. So they are pushing boundaries, becoming comfortable with themselves. And I think somewhere, like you said, you know, Bollywood does play a role. When you see role models, you do get inspired. It pushes you, makes you think, and that is happening. It is there that women are getting inspired. Women are, let me put it this way, I feel women are becoming more fearless. And I think that's where the problem is. We have been, you know, sort of nurtured to be fearful of many things in our lives. You know, fearful of that look of the man on the street, fearful of your father-in-law's loud, you know, voice, booming voice, many things. And even the media and television and movies have done that to us. So I think women are becoming fearless. To me, that is a positive step. And I think that's where really the success will come from slowly as we start going out and fighting for our rights more and more.
You know, yes, there are no figures backing anything that I'm saying, and that was the first thing I started with. It is a very personal journey. It is personal because I represent, like I said, women who seem to be in the same space as me. The way I look at it and the way a lot of my so-called kindred spirit look at it is, we rather look at the positives, however narrow, small and, you know, tiny a percentage is. Celebrate that. I rather celebrate the positives and move ahead, because only if I celebrate the positives will I have the strength to take on the negatives. And once again, not backed by any figures, no percentages over here.
So, you know, rightly pointed out, it sounds like privilege more than anything else. Now, you know, you are somewhere or you're a corporate leader, you know, you're editor of a newspaper, there are people working under you, and you know, you've been a corporate person yourself. What do you think, you know, in terms of whether in the corporate world, whether it's the government, what more can they do? I mean, what should be done, you know, to bring in that equality today in the society, you know, in the corporate world? How much of it can be pushed? And is it possible to push the agenda? You know, as you rightly said, you know, the percentage of working women is decreasing. You know, there are you know, lesser number of, you know, if you really look at the Fortune 100 organization, how many really have a you know, woman CEO? There, you know, it can be counted, and you know, they become celebrities by virtue of the fact that they've been able to reach the top. And that's a reality. The difficulty of coming back to the corporate world in spite of being a successful, you know, working woman. So what do you think, you know, how do you push the agenda? I mean, is there anything, any ideas, anything that you feel you'd like to share, and do you think it is possible?
Well, I think, yes, of course it is possible, we know, but I think it's a long haul. It cannot happen, let's say, in the next 5 years. I see as another 2 decades of good work, which is really by practitioners like yourself, HR practitioners, and above you, the CEOs of companies. So I feel somewhere the issue is, you know, it has to really cannot happen at the top there in that sense to bring the change. It has to change somewhere else, which is in schools. So I'm going to step back and say that if you really want women to come out and really, you know, become what they should be, the change has to happen somewhere else, where women who are very strong already and are tutors today, educators today, that's where that equality has to be nurtured. That's where that fearlessness has to be nurtured, so that a woman grows up and she knows that I can fight it out, and I know it's a big bad word, I can go out easily. And that boy goes out, and when he starts working along with that woman, he appreciates and respects her as an individual. I think, therefore I say it will take at least 2 decades when something of this kind, on one end that would be. And as far as companies, I think corporate world, it has to be really CEO and leader driven. The person, when you are choosing your CEOs, when the leaders are joining in, unless they push this agenda, it has to be top down. Only then this can happen, you know. And otherwise, usually what happens, it's a tick in the box that I do need 2 women leaders, and that's it. But ultimately, it's a boys' club, you know. Even the CEO will have his own boys' club, and he will go and, you know, sort of gossip and sit and chat with them and go for a drink, while the 2 women are, may or may not, they want to rush home and attend to their family needs, you see. So that has to change. Where is that change going to come from? It can happen, but it has to happen, I think, with women leaders like ourselves, of course, pushing the agenda harder, speaking out more and more, and at the top, those leaders driving it themselves. Which I feel is a long haul, but yes, possible and doable.
I think the big problem is the difference, or is the gap between intent and practice. So, for instance, the maternity bill that we were talking about has extended paid full leave to 26 weeks from 12 weeks, which is a great intent. But it will be completely counter in its implementation, because what it means is that when there is a woman candidate and a male candidate, especially if it is a young fertile woman, then the cost of hiring her is assumed to be much higher, and therefore a lot less women are likely to be hired because of the new laws. And the second big miss for me, especially in the maternity bill, is that it accounts for nothing at all for paternity. So what does it mean? It sort of feeds into this cost argument against women, and completely sort of vests the entire responsibility of childcare on the woman, thereby freeing the man of any responsibility from it, and therefore also implying that the primary responsibility of the woman is to look after the child and not to pursue her profession. So it's a double whammy in my mind. However, what is unfair in it is that in Western countries which have progressive maternity bills, at least a part of the cost is borne by the government. So while the government has pushed for this and comes out smelling of roses, what they've done is actually push this whole cost into companies. And while large companies may or may not be able to absorb some of this, smaller companies will not be. If you have an organization of 50 people, you have to build a creche according to the new maternity bill. Is that really going to work out? Then the mother will get 4 breaks to go and look after the baby. I just don't see how it gets implemented. So, you know, intentionally it's a great thing to talk to the world that we are one of the most progressive maternity bills in the world. But really, how much of it is going to get implemented? And even when implemented, how much of it is going to be counterproductive to the original intentions? So therefore, I think, and this is my sort of grouse against this modern notion of feminism also, is that we always sort of outrage at the low-hanging fruit. So last year when Chanda Kochar made that statement that if mathematics was not, as a component of the MBA entrance examination was decreased, there would be more women managers. The immediate feminist response was that, can I show you my math, whatever mark sheet, you know, but the thing is, if you look at it, it is actually a serious, it would actually lend to a lot more women going into MBA schools, because unless you are doing finance, you don't need that level of quant knowledge. B, genetically, boys are better at mathematics than girls, it's been proven. And C, more importantly, more boys go to engineering colleges, so therefore they have 4 years of being tutored and taught how to crack that math paper than girls. And therefore, I think it was important at the time for feminists to say that, well, this is actually a good move. Instead, everyone said, no, oh, well, how dare you say girls are bad at math. So, the feminism in India especially is a very sort of consumerist-oriented, very, oh, we are all sisters and, you can wear what you want and you should be able to go. But we're not digging deep into the real issues and coming up with real solutions. And sometimes it needs us to look at our gender as being different. I'm not saying as being lesser. And it's only if you look at the difference can you fix those differences. So therefore, even in this maternity bill, are you looking at the woman as only a source of having a baby? You're not. So therefore, if you're bringing her into the workplace, you have to make that infrastructure around in order to ensure that she does. But I think that is the real failing, is that this big gap between intent and practice is growing larger by the day, which is why the numbers are not looking good.
Okay, since you mentioned about coming back, right, and the workplace, once again, absolutely personal experience. I think we need to stop using age as a barometer to judge women. I think it has to be merit-based. And maybe because I come from an industry where, where while we might joke about it, obviously there is a lot of truth in it. So when you're 20, you're ditzy. When you're 30, you represent oomph. When you're 40, you're tolerable. And when you're 50, you're over the hill. And that is pretty much how it is. Of course, you always have women like, her sitting over here. And it's not that advertising does not have women on the top. Of course they do. But not as many as one would like to see. Secondly, there are not too many women. Again, I'm talking from from the industry that I'm most familiar with. Not too many women actually get a chance to go back and make the same kind of dent that they were making before they became mothers or opted for domesticity. That's one part of it. The other part of it, I think, is. In fact, Amita and all of us were talking about it before, the discussion started, was at times, unfortunately, our biggest enemies end up being women, okay? And especially when you have a woman boss. When you expect a woman boss to step out for you, okay, that is more often than not when you're let down the most. And again, this is something that one has witnessed, one has experienced. Instead of turning around and saying it's okay, we'll hold the fort till you get back. Before you know it, someone else has stepped in and you're forgotten. So I think it is, apart from the HR practices, which I don't want to get into because, it has already been addressed. Yes, we need better HR practices. Kaushik, I know you're from the HR industry, I'm really sorry, but, it is by and large lip service in our country. The law, the corporate laws that pertain to women, again, like I said, I'm not very good at mincing words, so they kind of really suck. Okay, you don't really get the support that you need when you're actually at your vulnerable, worst or best, however you look at it, because suddenly you're a mother, you want to give it the best, you also want to go back to your career, and you're without any support. What do you do? So till you have people supporting you at your workplace, okay, till you have these honest practices, HR practices, I think, and like I said, age, it would be very, very difficult for women to come back, I think you're being very optimistic about the 2 decades, but inshallah it should happen. Yes.
It's interesting insights. Maternity bill, we all understand it's a huge step forward, but as she rightly pointed out, I think that's what everybody is talking about. I think it's going to really have it's a double whammy, and it might just bring down the gender diversity ratio further in the corporate world. I mean, that's what, at least in the short run, for sure. But then these are steps which have been taken, and of course there are, she rightly pointed out, there are a lot of lip services which are happening in the corporate world, and how much of it is in real terms and how much of real-time action is happening. That's what we need to see. But yes. Winds of change are, flowing, and I think it's moving in the right direction. So, I think we are almost 40 minutes, and that's the time given to us. And I think in this section there will be a lot of questions because somewhere it affects most of us in the present world. So any questions that you have for the panelists?
So my question is actually from quite a personal experience, like yours was, and it's to all of you. I don't know what your particular personal situations are. Do you believe that women can have it all, is question number one. Number two is, and I know what your answer would be, but I'd still like you to address it. Number two, just to your point on the maternity bill. So I am a beneficiary of a 6-month maternity leave with an employer that was very progressive, that is very progressive, a bank, an American bank. They didn't have to do this. I had my daughter 9 years ago, and I cannot thank my employer for the 6 months that I got to look after my little girl. So for me, this is a big thumbs up. The second point I wanted to make is that the maternity bill actually affects very few working women. Very few. It's only the organized sector. So I think, from my perspective, it's a really good beginning. And if it covers very few working women, it's still worthwhile. I think gender issues need to be seen in the perspective about the women that it does not cover, the domestic helps. And the day that we give our domestic help 6 months maternity leave is when I think we've probably arrived. So, and the third point is, if I hadn't got the 6 months maternity leave, I do not know if I'd still be working as hard and as loyally and as enthusiastically as I do today. The fourth point that I wanted to make is the maternity bill, the cost is actually being borne by the government because most of the women that it covers are employed by the government. A lot, a big chunk, I would say 60%. Because the government is a big employer of women.
The government already has different maternity policies.
But was it 12 weeks or 26?
It was 12 weeks. Again, this labor is a state subject. I think you'll be able to sort of address it better. So the implementation of it is on the states, and the states can choose how much of it. Yes. From what I understand. And yes, you're right, it was only the organized sector. And see, I want to just sort of reaffirm that I absolutely love the idea of the 26 weeks. I'm just saying that what it would mean in terms of practice is that a lot fewer women would be employed. So for women who already have their jobs, hold on to them. But for young women who are coming into the workforce, this is definitely, at least in the short to medium term, going to work against them. So just to clarify on that.
So to my question.
So point about having it all.
Can you have it all?
No. And that's an honest fact. You can't have it all. And I would say that there are stages, let me put it that way. There are trade-offs in life. We have to make those choices. Man makes it, a woman has to make it. While we are talking about women issues, let's also accept that there are enough men who are making choices as well, right? So we have to respect that. Change is there as well. You can't have it all at all points in time, but there are times when you can have it all. There is a phase when you are early in life in your career, it's having it all, because that's all you're doing. You're working, you're getting the best out of it, and you're doing the best. It's when you get into the married life and personal commitments with children, you can't have it all. You have to give up on something because social, infrastructure, environmental, and women themselves choose. I know I was a guilty mom at one stage. I decided that no, I don't want to work because I want to focus on my kids are getting neglected. So, you gave up. So I didn't have it all, but I got something that I wanted at that time. But when I came back into work life, I had to give up something on my personal front. I lost out on those days when my children were, doing other things and I was away at work. So I think, having it all is a very utopian dream, and I'm not too sure that that's a possibility. If you have a dream and a desire to get somewhere, you have to learn to make choices. And I think those are the choices we as women have to make ourselves, for ourselves.
about woman is a woman's worst enemy, right? I just want to comment on that, I think we should never say that. The reason is because some women have internalized this entire patriarchy and misogyny so much that they're afraid of change. But that's true of men also. So whether it's a man or a woman, I don't think anybody is anybody's enemy consciously. It's a subconscious. For instance, I'll give you an example. Like I believe that it's so sacred, our entire marriage ceremony. So this young girl who is going to marry my son, she said, you know, auntie, if you don't mind, I don't want a kanyadan. My first reaction was, you know, no, I must protect my tradition. And then I thought about it and I said, what am I doing? She is being progressive and I am telling her to go back. More than progressive, it's her choice. Forget about progressive. So I don't think a woman is a woman's worst enemy. It's just that it's so internalized, this patriarchy, that we end up behaving like that. So you must forgive women who look like they are harming women. I don't think anybody's harming anybody. You know, that's just my observation, right?
Absolutely.
Not necessarily that you would agree with it.
No,
but
I totally respect, you know, your opinion. When I said a woman is a woman's worst enemy, you know, I personally feel that there are things that we need, like you said, we should never talk about it. That is where we differ. I think we need to talk about it. Because only if you talk about it, would you acknowledge it, would you
but
try
by the
and
way,
do
this
something.
has been said since like some 100 years. That
So isn't that sad? Isn't that sad
It's
that
not
even
true.
it might
For me,
not
it's
be?
not true.
Yeah, no, so that's what I'm saying. Each one of us has our own experience, and this is some. And I'm not saying this that it is true of everyone across every aspect of your life, but there could be some aspects where it holds true. And if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't air it, if we don't talk about it, it will never ever get sorted. Women are also women's best friends. I have a friend over here who's come in today. We were in school when we were in class 7. We've known each other. I'm so amazed that she took time out to come here today. Anu, this is for you. Yeah, so we are also each other's best friends.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answers from both of you.
Can women have it all?
Yeah.
I think no one can have it all. I don't think it's a gender question. It's just a question of life. And do we need to have it all? I think I'm pretty happy not having it all. Having some is good enough.
I think, you know, having it all, I think is also kind of changes as you grow. Okay, I think what I wanted 10 years ago is very different from what I want today. Yes, today I do not have a career, but I have everything else that I want. And I think ultimately, at least where I am today, I just want peace of mind, and I just, you know, I just want to go to bed. I want to have my nice glass of wine. I don't want anyone to pass judgments on me. I just want to sleep happy and wake up happy. Sure, and if I get a check also, nothing like it.
So, you know, there are many women in that space. I have a friend here, Sunila. She's a doctor. She chose her path in life, which would give her happiness through work as well as home. So in a way, she has got what she wanted out of life. So it's the choices that you make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One last question. I think we're really constrained by time.
not really.
Okay, there's a
So
mail.
one mail is there.
Mail is, yeah.
Okay, I'll let her. Then
Should we pass it on?
No, of course, please go ahead.
So not really a question, not really a question, more like a thought and a suggestion here. So we're talking about winds of change, and you mentioned that the change has to move out of the normal sphere and maybe into the classroom, into the school education. Perhaps we need to move it back one more step and move it to the mother who doesn't make the change between her son and the daughter.
Absolutely.
That's where the change will
Yes.
really begin.
I like to say.
Yes, so all of you had some kind of media, advertising, culture background. So, while the past discussion was all about how folklore, literature affected the notion of what women symbolize and the expectations around them. As of now, the entire dialogue that we've had till now has been more rights-based and a legal approach to getting women to have those rights and implementing it. But a lot of aspects relating to women are probably not even in the right space, they're in the popular cultural space, where legislation may not be the best space. And coming to the present, there are forms of advertising like femvertising, women taking up roles in Bollywood, which are storytelling formats by which conversations begin amongst people. And these tend to have a very subtle way of creating family level conversations. Just an anecdote that one of my friends saw this aerial ad where the sharing the load was the theme, where the man and the woman were supposed to equally share the thing. And what happened is that there was a difference of opinion at some point in time. And the lady just made a reference to the ad. He said, remember that ad? And she left it at that. So somewhere it just struck me that, at a very subconscious level, popular culture also has a very great impact. So I just wanted to know your points of view on what the role of popular culture can be in the present and what is the role that women can play, because there are a lot of women in the advertising industry, the media industry. I really don't hear any voices coming out and actually symbolizing women. I mean, Piyush Pandey has made a case that, of course there are stalwarts also out there, but I'm not talking about that. But on an average, campaigns which actually come out talk about them led by women, the larger space is something that I just wanted a viewpoint from each one of you, because each one of you seem to have some kind of background with that.
I don't know if it qualifies as a present, but we had a Lalita Ji, okay, and Lalita Ji revolutionized the market. Because Lalita Ji came at a time where women were not exactly expected to take decisions, or where they were just expected to, okay, so when it came to buying detergents, yes, obviously it was a woman's job to do it. But the beauty of Lalita Ji was that even though she represented the middle class, she was a woman who made a choice, and that choice was backed by things that mattered, which was logic and economics. So there have been women, sure enough, not as many as one would expect, but there are women in the world of advertising. When I say in the world of advertising, I'm obviously talking about the campaigns where they have brought about a difference. And the reason I said this was, this actually happened some 30 years ago. Or for that matter, you have a Karen's, dancing under a waterfall. That happened when I was in school, little bit that. I mean, that epitomized so many things, with so many, yes.
Just a clarification that I was not referring to women featuring in advertising. So
Okay,
for example,
sorry.
the lyrical thing was
Yeah.
created by Alec Padamsi.
Yeah,
There was a man behind that.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the back end, where women in the roles of NCDs, women
Okay.
in the roles of directors,
Okay, so
Coming out
we
and
have a lady,
taking
okay, so there's an amazing, an absolutely amazing and highly revered creative director called Elsie Nanji. She was she is an art director. She was at the helm of Trikaya Grey when it was at its peak, and I think, if you know anything about advertising, Trikaya represented everything that was creative and best that India had to offer. And Elsie Nanji bore the stamp of creating calligraphy and of creating typography that excel not just in our markets, but at Cannes, when India participating in Cannes was extremely minimal. So there have been women who have, made a difference. Yes, one would like to see many, many, many more, but they have been there. Some of them do it in a slightly quieter manner these days, I think, because I think now advertising has also become a lot about loudness. It has become about giving the right sound bite. So maybe.
any changes that you'd like to see? If this can be
Yes, exactly what you said. More women on top. It's as simple as that.
women on top.
In media, it's very clear quickly. If you go to any newspaper office, all the editor cabins are men, but if you look at the floor, it's mostly women. So I think in another 5 years is all it takes for media to be a woman-driven and with the gender ratio where there'll be more women than men, for sure.
Well, again in advertising, but I've seen women actually lapsing out of the industry. It's become a man's world, truly speaking. You would endorse that, and you've seen it around you. And when I started my career, there were very strong women in the industry, women who were leaders, who were seen, who were accomplished in their spaces, and they had a voice within the organization, and therefore they had outside the organization. Today, I see less and less of that. In most of the advertising world, if I look around the big fours and the media agencies or on the creative agencies, it takes me a little time to think, who are those top 4 women? So it's not there. It's not happening because of reasons which are very real, and those are the same issues that we spoke about. Yes, maybe it'll change. Yeah, I still believe it will take 2 decades, and there will be some changes which will be there. But I think also because women like myself have been in this thing about the rat race of getting ahead in your career, and it's a damn tough job in this world, which is truly a man's world, that you find that there is no bandwidth left for you to go out and do more. So you want to give up. I firmly believe we need to give back to the women, to the society. In our own social groups, we need to do that. And this, I think, is one of those steps that we are taking together. But I think that's what it is. It's holding us back somewhere with the kind of traps we have in the kind of workplaces we would like to do.
I want to
Get
go.
one more male perspective.
I think we're really running short of time.
So I just have a small observation, and whenever we talk about this topic, I feel a sense of classification in all this. The whole data, research, we're all talking about working women, corporate women, film women, whatever the women who are coming, domestic helps. They're not privy to these kind of intelligent discussions. Who's standing up for them, right? And for them, we are the companies. Are we progressive enough to give them 26 weeks of maternity leave? Are we standing up for them? Health policies, what are we doing for them? So, I mean, in the same, we have lot of intelligent data, lot of women coming in support, government policies. These guys are not educated. No one is giving them access. So I think we should also give them that kind of, support. And this is my request that, please include them in these kind of discussions. Make it easy for them to understand. At the same time, make it Hindi speaking. If these people are not able to speak English, make it really easy for them. These are also women who are probably more challenged, So that is my request.
Okay. Last one.
Yeah, I'm just taking on. There was something said about popular culture. I just want to take up a very current movie which is supposedly doing well. I haven't seen it. Badrinath Ki Dulhania. What would be your comments, please? Nobody's seen it. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. Okay, but I think I've pretty much got feedback from everyone who's seen it, including the reviews. What scares me is the glorification of stalking. And apparently that's what he does in it. He stalks her till she says yes. And that scares me because, we are talking popular culture, and this is what we are propagating. And this is what, apart from, people living in the metros, this is the message going out, and it is scary. And this is not the first time popular culture has done this. A couple of years ago, there was another movie, I'm forgetting, it had Sonam and some South Indian star in it. And it was one of the blockbusters of the year, and it was all based on stalking. So it is scary.
Is that what you wanted to hear, or you have some comments on it?
I wish somebody would see it.
Well, I think it's also, it really, in a very fun way, it gives out a message against dowry.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's there in the, there's a social message that goes out. I think that's, yeah, so that's the other, the positive side to it. But yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think it's scary. The way they really, I think that's something which is there not only in this movie, but many movies. Stalking is shown as a virtue, and it's a way of, whatever, romance. So that is it. I think it was very interesting, very emotional. It ignited a lot of thoughts. But there's a lot that need to be done in the present context, that's for sure. Thank you very much to the panelists.